Yassas. Welcome to Greek Like Me, the podcast about all things Greek. I'm your host, Pamela Diotis Wood. Email us at stealthgreek@gmail.com to share comments, questions, and stories about anything and everything Greek. We're fortunate to be joined today by James Romm, the James H. Ottaway Jr. Professor of Classics at Bard College in New York State. He specializes in ancient Greek and Roman culture and civilization and is a respected historian, author, and translator of ancient texts. He's published in The New Yorker, The Wall Street Journal, The London Review of Books, The Daily Beast, and others. He makes the ancients interesting and accessible. We'll be talking today about his recently published book, Since You're Mortal: Life Lessons from the Lost Greek Plays, inspired by a larger collection assembled in the 5th century. The book not only shares a portion of ancient Greek writings that would otherwise have been lost to time, but offers insight and guidance that still resonates in the 21st century. It's a rare opportunity to find out more about ancient Greece, its theatrical traditions, why some plays weren't preserved, and how classical Greek works continue to be uncovered, sometimes with the help of modern technology. Welcome to Greek Like Me, James Romm.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited about the book as soon as I heard from your publicity team, because having a collection of these excerpts from lost works, I've been so frustrated whenever I've been researching something and I go into an ancient Greek writer and they mention a play, and then I go try to find the play and it doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
So this is an amazing collection. Can you tell us what inspired this?
Sure. I was asked to work on a project translating the entire anthology of a man named Stobaeus that was compiled in the 5th century AD. It's an enormous thing. It's a mega doorstopper and uh, required about 20 translators uh, taking different authors or different portions of it. And my portion was the tragedies, actually, all of drama, tragedies and comedies.
Oh, wow.
That in itself was enormous, but it was manageable for one person. And most of these quotes in Stobaeus are from plays that no longer exist, because at the time he wrote, they were already perishing. And as I was translating for this Stobaeus project, I realized these are like little gems. They're like little poems that deserve to be better known. In advance of the full Stobaeus, which is coming out in a year or two, I sort of spun off this volume and took only the best of the ones that I had translated. So the best of the best, I call it, because Stobaeus was already selecting the ones he thought were the best.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful book, and I enjoyed going through and reading all of these quotes. They were so much fun. Some of them were funny. Some of them contradicted each other, which is something that you had brought up in your introduction, is that there would be one quote, and I think I put two of them together that I thought were funny that had to do with money. Wealth treats us like a bad physician does. It finds men sighted, then makes all of them blind. That was Antiphanes. And then right on the next page, money's the blood and breath of life for mortals. Whoever doesn't have it or doesn't use it walks about like a corpse among the living, which
Mhm.
was Themocles. That was so much fun. Why do you think he was throwing in contradictory information, or was he just getting a kick out of it?
That's a great question because, after all, these quotes are selected for his son's moral education. He wanted to give his son a guide to life using the Greek classics. And you would expect he would have a uniform point of view on subjects like wealth. But in fact, he was giving his son a kind of range of choice in some
Mm,
matters. There are some matters on which he has conviction. Virtue is better than vice.
mhm.
But on wealth, he saw multiple possibilities, multiple points of view. On marriage, he was extremely agnostic. He has, I think, six different chapters on marriage, each giving a different point of view.
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
include any of those in my book, but it's fascinating that he had that kind of breadth.
It really is. It sounds like a very, I don't know, different kind of Greek parent to me.
Yes,
Usually it's like
exactly.
laser focus, do
Yes,
this.
it's a
So
different kind of parenting.
that's kind of fun. I enjoyed that. The title of the book is Since You're Mortal, which is from an excerpt from Euripides.
Hmm.
Um, Since you're mortal, expect to endure mortal dreams, or do you, mere human, think you should have a god's life?
Hmm.
Which is wonderful. Life lessons from the lost Greek plays. Uh, Talk to us a little bit more about Sabaeus. Was I read somewhere that he was an anthologist. I read actually in your introduction, I think, that he was an anthologist. Can you tell us about that?
Well, he's described that way because of this work that he left
Oh,
behind.
I see.
We don't know what his profession was or what he tells us nothing about himself in this essay.
Ah,
Um, he doesn't. There was apparently a prefatory letter to his sons, a man named Septimius, but that's been lost, and
mhm,
we have only a couple of shreds of what it contained. So we know almost nothing about him. He lived in the fifth century AD, which is a time when the Roman Empire was on the wane in the west, but he lived in the east, in the Balkans, and so the Byzantine part of the empire was very much thriving. And
mhm,
he seems to have been a Christian, to judge by his name. His name is Johannes.
mhm.
We call him Stobaeus because he lived in a place called Stobi, but he had a Christian name, so maybe he was Christian, but you can't tell that from the quotes. There's nothing Christian about them.
No, it's because we're dealing with the ancient plays and
Yeah.
the enormity of the book that he put together. Is it all intact, or are there pieces missing from the book as well?
It seems to be intact. In fact, there are two volumes, if you like. The first one much shorter than the second, but both of them divided up into these thematic chapters on virtue, on wealth, on marriage, on death. Um, so he seems to have gotten addicted to the anthologizing process. Once he got
Mm.
started, he just couldn't stop. So the thing kept growing and growing, and it became enormous, such that it's never been translated before into English. This is the first ever time.
Oh my. And yet it was passed on from generation to generation by those who were copying manuscripts. They found it valuable enough to keep it going.
The Byzantines thought of it as a treasury, a florilegium, which is the kind of thing that medieval scribes and scholars love, right? Because it preserves a lot of wisdom in a very compact way. So yes, it got passed down through the Byzantine world.
But you explained in your introduction there's a reason why so many of the plays were lost, but this work remains, and that has to do with the materials that they were using to copy, and that some plays didn't make the grade or they just weren't able to keep up with it.
That's right. Yes, Sobeus lived at a choke point, a bottleneck, where plays that were on papyrus, a very perishable medium, inexpensive and perishable, were being transferred or being recopied onto vellum books, that is, books with animal skin leaves. And that's a much more durable, but also much more expensive medium. So the scribes had to be very selective what they put onto vellum. And a lot of plays they just passed by, and then the papyrus scrolls deteriorated, and that was the end of them.
Mm. But you also mentioned that the entire attitude of Greek theater changed from the classical era into the era that was going closer to the times Tobias was living.
That's right. Yes. The plays of ancient Athens, from which these quotes come, were a whole different experience than anything that the Byzantines or even the Romans knew. The entire city, or a huge proportion of the citizen population, would attend a single performance of a play, or a set of three plays actually, uh, once in the year, or eventually twice, but very limited and restricted to a religious festival. So it was a ritual. It was a way that the citizenry bonded and experienced a common set of moral questions all at the same
Mm.
time. So it was more like it can't be compared to anything that we have. It was a unique and totally bonding experience for the Greeks.
It was a way of sort of bringing everyone together to, was there debate going on after viewing these plays?
Well, the plays were put on in competition. So three playwrights were chosen each year to perform at the Tragic Festival. And the judges, 10 judges were appointed who selected the best of the three. And that poet was received a laurel crown. Hence, we have
Mhm.
the term poet laureate. Um, uh, so there was a sense that um, the plays were being compared with one another, and the best ones were being chosen. And oftentimes, the ones that were selected as the best are not the ones that were preserved.
Wow,
It's to say classic seven of Aeschylus and of Sophocles and the 21 of Euripides that survive were not festival winners. Some were, but not all. And very often the winners were lost subsequently.
that's so strange.
It is, yes.
I wonder what was going on there. The way I looked at it, I didn't realize that this was sort of a once a year, twice a year event. And I was thinking it's sort of like years ago, Arthur Miller plays, and now we've got like The Lion King and all the Disney plays. And it's just gone from sort of a more thought-provoking type of literature to pure entertainment. With, I guess it was Menander was one of the examples that you were giving, who was more of an entertaining playwright rather than using the type of jokes or the type of drama that would really get people thinking about what was happening in the world around them.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, tragedy morphed or evolved into something called new comedy that was represented by Menander. And as you say, they were more like our modern day rom-coms. Uh,
Mm.
Young men falling in love with young women and trying to woo them despite a angry father, that kind of thing. Um, not based on myth any longer, and not having the kind of choral odes. So a huge feature of the ancient tragedy is the chorus, and the chorus are there to reflect on, to contemplate, and to editorialize on
Mhm.
what's going on in the drama. And that feature died away by the time of Menander.
Oh, huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, mythology was no longer important because we'd entered the Christian era.
No, Menander is still in the pagan world. It's simply that the plots of myth, which, usually involve someone dying,
Mhm.
some horrible violation of law, just wasn't conducive any longer to the kind of experience that the city was looking for.
Oh my gosh, I see so many parallels between us and that time where the sort of the dumbing down and let's just appeal to your I don't know, your desires and your happiness and your entertainment rather than them trying to get people thinking. So
Exactly. Yeah.
it's fascinating the way that circle keeps going around in history.
Yes, and it's also a matter of belief. The belief in the Olympian gods or the sense of their presence in the world was very much different in Menander's time in the late fourth century BC, as opposed to the mid fifth century. The cults of the Olympians were on the wane by that time.
So that was happening even before Christianity entered the picture.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, you can feel it already in Plato, who is about midway between those 2 points, the heyday of tragedy and the heyday of new comedy. And
Mm.
Plato's already asking questions about the gods. They couldn't have done the things that they're said to have done. That's just not what gods are. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating to hear because we're so used to hearing of that sort of timeline. And here was the god pantheon, and then Christianity came, and that was the downfall. But it sounds like it opened the door for Christianity because people were already losing interest in the pantheon of gods of Greece.
Or feeling discomfort with them, yes, with the old myths. Yeah. I mean, Plato is, as you say, is the gateway to Christianity. He's already talking about God in the singular, and he's
Mhm.
talking about a God who's entirely good and can't possibly inflict harm, um, and and instills perfect happiness if you can contemplate that being. So yeah, things are changing rapidly in the fourth century.
That's a big shift in understanding. And I've read the myths for many years, and I've read about that little transition period, but it is still presented often in history books as Christianity sort of knocked
Mm.
the gods off the stage. But it's really interesting to hear that point of view, that it wasn't a huge heralding event. It was more of a softer move from one thing to another that
Yes,
attracted people.
very much so. And then you have the Stoics coming in right around the same time as Menander, who are already talking about God as a kind of universal being that encompasses the whole cosmos
Mhm.
and can't be divided into different personalities. So, um, of course, the temples were still there and rites were still being performed, but it was not nearly as universal an experience.
Did that contribute to the fracturing of society at all? Because that was something that pulled everybody together.
Yes, very much so. The possibility of having a private life apart from the city, of absenting oneself from politics, of calling oneself a citizen of the world and not of a single city state. Those were all things happening in the time of Menander that changed society radically.
Wow, that must have been a really amazing time to live through
Indeed.
and terrifying at the same time.
The pace of change was unlike anything. I mean, the person we haven't mentioned is Alexander the Great, who
Yeah.
um, changed the world politically and militarily more than anyone before. And that ushered in some of these other bigger changes, social and cultural changes.
Wow, it's amazing to put all those little pieces of the puzzle together to see the big picture instead of the way we learn in general, the way the population learns about the history of things. It's so fractured that it's not really all coming together to show us the big picture. And that's why um, this is why this is such an interesting talk, because I feel like I'm connecting the dots in ways that I hadn't quite before, and I appreciate that. That's something. Do you have any favorite quotes? I'm assuming you said you picked out all of your favorites from what Sylvain had put in, because it was such a huge book, and that must have been a tough decision to make.
Mm.
But what are your particular favorites in there?
Oh, there's so many. Uh, I guess I'll start with the one that generated the title from Euripides. Since you're mortal, and you quoted this already, since you're mortal, expect to endure mortal things, or do you, mere human, think you deserve a god's life? And that I think typifies the spirit of the whole volume, that we're all mortal. We're not going to live forever, and our problems are not instantly soluble.
Hmm.
So we'd better anticipate the kind of things we're going to go through, the setbacks, the downturns, old age,
Mm.
decrepitude, if we're lucky, which is another quote that I love, that old age is an evil that people pray they will get, um, and eventually death. And to be in mind of these things, and to be ready for them, in a sense, is the path to a good life, because we won't be taken by surprise. We won't be knocked off balance by the things that don't go the way we want.
That was an interesting theme throughout because there, even though there were quotes about, like the ones I said about wealth, oh, everybody needs this. It was like constantly a reminder we are going to get old. We are going to have disappointments. We are going to lose our way. You're not going to get everything you want to get. You're going to have tragedy in your life. And yet at the same time, he kept it kind of light because they were little bite-sized pieces, little bite-sized warnings. And maybe that's why he contradicted himself so much, because it was like a bite size of something fun and then a bite size of, oh, look out, this is coming for you too.
Yes, bite size is a good term, because they are appetizers, if you like.
Mm,
They introduce these quotes from drama, introduce each of his chapters, and then he moves to much longer and heavier quotes from Plato, the Stoics, the
mm.
Epicureans. He has pages and pages from Plato. He likes to start you off with little bites, so you're ready for the main course, as it were.
Oh, he pulls you in. And at the end of each chapter, you were giving the monostichos, I don't know how to say that in English,
Monosticks.
monostichs,
Mhm.
which were just these little like one line
Mhm.
little blurbs that just, ooh, okay, now that you've finished, ping, 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 here you go before we start the next chapter.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that was entertaining too. But now the plays were written in, was it iambic pentameter? Was it iambic? That makes me think of
Trimeter,
Shakespeare.
iambic trimeter,
Mhm.
which is slightly longer line than the iambic pentameter. It's six
Okay.
beats rather than five,
Okay.
but has a similar rhythm.
Was that difficult to translate into English?
You know, for me, it comes a bit naturally. I get iambic pentameter stuck in my head. I start thinking in iambic pentameter after a
Oh,
while.
that's
Um,
great.
and then everything starts to sound like so. It's just a matter of sort of getting in the groove,
Mm,
and then it unfolded pretty naturally. Um, I made the point in the introduction that these things in meter and in verse tend to stick in the head much more than prose. And I use the example of Shakespeare, neither a borrower nor a lender be. That's something that rolls off the tongue and sticks in
mhm.
the head, but don't borrow money or lend it. That has a different feel. So
Right.
the meter of these quotes is important, and in many cases, I was the first one to translate them into meter. They are sometimes available in scholarly editions translated into prose, so it
Yeah.
was important to restore the meter.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And you've done many translations before, so it's sort of like your home ground
Yes,
dealing with these things, which
right.
must have been so much fun.
It is fun. It's great fun. I had a great time with this book. I've now done another book of iambic poetry. It translates a ancient Greek epic poem on fishing. I'm a passionate fisherman, so for me, this was like the perfect marriage of two different passions,
Oh,
and
wow.
that'll come out next year under the title "How to Fish." So
That's great. Is this something new to English? Has this been translated before into English?
Not since the 18th century. So the
Okay,
world
so we're ready for it.
in diverse, in diverse. So the world has waited a long time. Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's something we have to look out for because I'm sure that that's going to be so much fun.
Uh-huh.
Um, Now, Stobaeus did excerpts from lost plays, but he also had plenty of things because he didn't know what was going to disappear. He had plenty of excerpts from plays that we still have with us. You chose specifically to put in the excerpts from the lost plays, I believe, in
Right.
your book.
Yeah. 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 I thought there's something compelling about the fact that we just have these tidbits. We just have the tip of the iceberg from this vast corpus of drama that's been lost. And I wanted to share that sense of almost an archaeological process of unearthing something that has never been seen before, or
Mhm.
certainly you've never seen it before. And when the play exists and people have probably read it, or some people have read it, like Antigone, for instance, uh,
Mhm.
it's a it's a different experience. So I excluded the plays that exist in full.
Mhm. And you added others that were not in Stobaeus?
Right. Yes,
Mm.
there are other collections of quotes, especially from Menander, that are in separate collections, and uh, again, mostly transmitted by Byzantine scribes as a little, like, Poor Richard's Almanac kind of thing. And
Mhm.
so I did some mining from those as well.
And but some are anonymous. We've lost the understanding of who it was that was actually writing the play.
Right.
So because they were just fragments, so that was lost, which
Yes.
is fascinating too. Have you ever tried to figure out from the sound of it who it might have been?
Well, in a one-line quotation, one really has very little to go on. Um,
Mhm.
Many of the anonymous ones are probably from Menander, because he was just a huge resource for people quarrying for these aphorisms. Um, and he wrote so many plays that no longer exist. Uh, but there were dozens and dozens of playwrights, comic and tragic. Some of them are only names to us, and it's mostly impossible to know
Mm.
who to assign them to. Sometimes you see plays, or fragments rather, that are assigned by one scholar to Sophocles, and another scholar to Euripides, and a third scholar to some other playwright.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see Menander as almost like Sheldon Leonard, like he's just so prolific and puts out all those those experiences that were so common,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
that and then they just sort of disappear. They're not important to anyone anymore.
yeah.
So it's a shame because he sounds like he was just really working away there and
Mhm.
into anonymity in the end.
Yes, and the few the one intact play, and a couple of others that we have large portions of from Menander have been recovered from mummy wrappings, because the Egyptians used these papyrus scrolls to wrap mummies, and then the dry sand of Egypt preserved them fairly well. So we can unwrap them and then read them. And that's how most of Menander has been recovered.
That's something else. So they were using the leftover papyri that they weren't really interested in to wrap up the mummies, and that's how we have Menander's plays. Oh, I love it. That's great. That's so funny. That's so fascinating.
Uh-huh.
Um, to go back to the monostichos again, monostichs.
Monostics.
These came from another anthology
Yeah.
you mentioned. What was that all about?
So that's something called the Menandri Sententiae, the wisdom nuggets of Menander, that, as I say, was compiled by the Byzantines as a just as a set of one-liners that everyone can relate to. Some of them are quite dull. Some of them are quite misogynistic.
No
Apparently,
doubt.
Menander's characters, not the playwright himself, we have to remember these come from his characters. Many of them expressed terrible views of women um, for the male audience that was viewing the plays. So I left all those out, of course, and also the dull ones, but I did find some real gems in there. One of them is often quoted in the reviews of the book. Hunger or lack of coin puts a stop to love. And
Oh,
that one
yeah,
comes from the monostichs, yeah, from the Sententii.
that's good. It was nice to bring that little combination together. I enjoyed reading that at the end of every chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you were dividing things up into chapters, were you paying attention to how many of these quotes you were pulling out that would fit under each chapter? Did you group them yourself, or did they come from the grouping of Stobaeus?
I mostly followed the grouping of Stobaeus. His thematic chapters, virtue is one, and old age. He has several chapters on old age and death, of course. Some of them I crafted myself. I'm not sure that friendship is one of his own groupings or if I created that. Um,
Mhm.
but they roughly follow a kind of path through life, if you like, uh,
Mm.
leading to death as the penultimate chapter. But I didn't want to end on too dark a note, so I threw in a sort of miscellaneous grab bag as the final chapter.
This translation, the book at the whole book, as
Mm.
well as many of the quotes that you have in here, had never been translated into English.
Some had never been translated at all, and others had never been translated into verse.
And my understanding is that the books that you were using that had been handed down by the scribes, it was over 100 years old, the one that you were using to translate from.
The only edition of Stobaeus that we have, the only modern printed edition, is over 100 years old. Yes. Yeah.
And that was in Greek.
It's mostly in Greek with a Latin preface and Latin notes. Yeah.
Was it in modern Greek or was it still transcribed in ancient Greek?
Ancient Greek.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a very limited audience for that one.
Oh, yeah.
Even 100 years ago, not too many people were. I can't even fathom that. That's really crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I liked another one, the chapter on using one's head. I thought that was a fun chapter.
Mhm.
The quote you have is the mind sees and the mind hears, all else is deaf and blind.
Mm.
And that reminded me of one of my modern favorite Greek sayings, which is akukides, um, listen and see.
Mm.
And there was a timely quote, and I found dreadful when one lacks sense, imagines he has it. And I
Yes.
thought, how apropos. That
Yeah.
sounds really good. If I may bring it up in the acknowledgments,
Hmm.
you wrote, most of all to Tanya, my love, from whose delight in a Valentine the idea for this volume was born.
Mm.
If you wish, can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. When I had been translating these passages for the Stobaeus project, I came across one longish one from Sophocles. It's a hymn to Aphrodite, and it describes how Aphrodite is not just love, but all things natural. She's Hades, she's lament, she's wailing, uh, and she overthrows the gods because of her power. And
Mm,
I had that passage printed on a handsome sort of Valentine card and presented it to her. And she liked it so much, she said, these poems, these passages have to be shared. They're beautiful poems. So that's how the idea for the book arose.
oh, that's so sweet. That's very romantic. And I appreciate her because how many of us, it's going to be scholars looking at the Stobaeus book, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm curious now to go take a look when it comes out, but this is anybody can pick up this book, anybody can get a hold of it and enjoy the quotes that are in here
Hmm.
and to see what these wonderful writers were saying, which it just reminds me about how over the years, I remember my mother used to have books of uh, Jesus quotations and
Hmm.
Confucius quotations and quotations from the poets. And there were little tiny little books that you could open up and you could read these little tidbits. And they always picked out the loveliest ones that could be found. And I think
Hmm.
that's why they're so popular. This must have been in the 60s, I guess. I don't know, showing my age, but they went way back. But this is a more substantial book and better organized and much lovelier quotes are in it. So it's nice that this is available for everyone. Excuse me.
Yeah, and what I like to do, and when I've given it as a gift, uh, there's such a wide range that you can find something that just nails your relationship to that person or some common experience that you've shared. So I put a check mark next to that quote, and then in my inscription I say, "See page 60," and
Oh,
they get a little, it's like a little gift when they read that quote.
just for them. Yeah,
Yeah,
book is just for them. And it's
yeah.
nice because I could see this appealing to someone who's lost someone or someone who's graduating, a student, or somebody like me who's basically retired, and just enjoys being able to sort of catch up in life with some of the things that I haven't had time for to remind me where my mind should be thinking. I mean, we're still human, we're still mortal, so all of these things still apply, and that's amazing too. People don't realize they sort of say, "Oh, that old stuff," but the old stuff we're still written for human beings that we're still going through everything that we're going through.
That's right. Exactly so. And the outcome I would most hope for from the reading experience is a sense of connection to people of 2,500 years ago. That
Mm,
uh, they say the past is a foreign country, to be able to really connect to the past is a wonderful thing. It's a
mm,
humanizing thing. It teaches us to be more human.
mm. It really does to think, to unplug a little bit, which we all need to do, and think a little bit, which
Mhm.
is delightful. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to mention about the book?
It makes a fabulous graduation gift.
Yeah.
I call it the Debbie Downer graduation speech because it doesn't say what most graduation speakers say, that the world is your oyster. You should do what you love. You should follow your dreams. It says instead, we live not how we want, but how we can.
Mm,
That there are limitations, there's downturns, there's obstacles, and we might as well get used to that.
reality check. I was looking at the list of books that you've written, Plato and the Tyrant, Demosthenes, Democracy's Defender, Ghost on the Throne, which is about Alexander the Great after he passed and the battle, I guess, to keep the empire going.
Mhm.
Herodotus, who's a favorite of mine and my absolute favorite, The Sacred Band,
Mm.
which in 2024 in June, we did a podcast on the Sacred Band, and you were my main source for
Uh-huh.
the podcast. So I already knew who you were.
I see.
Yeah, and that they're all wonderful books that sort of very well written and very entertaining in their way. If you are
Hmm.
entertained by history, which I certainly am,
Yeah.
a lot of great information in there. So I was really excited to see this book. And after the fishing book comes out, are you interested in revisiting the idea of pulling out more little tidbits from Stobaeus or elsewhere?
Not from Stobaeus. I think I've I've really plundered that source. I've taken the spoils of Egypt, and what's left is not nearly as compelling. Uh,
Mm,
but the fishing book is only about a fifth of this poem called Halieutica on saltwater fishing, and
mhm.
it's a fascinating poem. It's addressed to Marcus Aurelius.
Really?
Yes. So what the world does not know is that Marcus Aurelius loved to fish, and this
No,
poem
I did not know.
this poem is addressed to him and his son, Commodus, the unfortunate Commodus, who
Horrible.
played by Joaquin Phoenix in the Gladiator. And it's a marvelous poem. It has a lot of marine biology in it. It not just about fishing, but about the ways of fish. And
Wow.
uh, so I've taken the best stories, the best advice from it for this book,
Mhm.
How to Fish. But eventually, I think I would like to do the whole poem because it's marvelous and it doesn't exist. No one, no fisherman would have access to it unless they're scholars like me. Um, and
Oh my God.
I think the world deserves to know more about this poem.
So this volume is the appetizer for the
Exactly.
rest of the poem when you get
I,
that ready.
I hope so. Yeah.
That that sounds really wonderful. I enjoyed the book. I have marked many of my favorite
Oh my goodness. I
uh,
see that.
quotes,
Yes, indeed.
which I flip through and annoy my husband by walking up behind him and reciting them.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Nice.
but I think it's a lovely book, and I think it is a lovely gift. I think this is something that everybody would like to have on their bedside table.
That's where I keep mine actually, and it's a very nice thing to dip into it in the peace of late night, before going to sleep.
Well, this is it. If you do want to disconnect from the phone, which I'm working on right now, this is kind of a nice way to ease yourself back into reading things that are outside of, the beach read or whatever it is that we read to distract ourselves, because it does get you thinking, which is something I think all of us need at the moment, is to get thinking again. And
Mhm.
it made me curious, some of the different writers that you quoted that I was not as familiar with
Mhm.
as Euripides and Sophocles. And so that made me more curious. I have no idea who this person is. Kairamon,
Mhm. Kairamon. Yeah.
who was a playwright,
Yep. Yeah, apparently quite a good one to judge by the number of quotes from him.
and yet his plays don't exist in their entirety, any of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So that's so sad, but I appreciate that he's got something to say in your book.
Yeah. Yeah. There are many names in there that most people have never heard of, that I had never heard of before I started this. And
Mm.
and titles of plays, I included the titles where Stobaeus gives them, and some of the titles are quite wonderful.
Oh.
A comedy called "The Woman with Her Hair on Fire." What was the plot of that play? I mean, one
Wow.
one just the mind reels at the possibilities.
Yeah. We can only hope that more mummies are disinterred and we find more of those plays wrapping up those little bodies. That is, I keep picturing this now, trying to wrap my
Uh,
mind around that, the plays wrapping up the mummies. That I just love that image. I think if I
well,
have
and
to,
there was a news item just recently that a mummy was found with some lines of Homer's Iliad used as a wrapping, and that was quite remarkable because we didn't have anything like that. Such an old papyrus of Homer's Iliad, and it was
oh,
from book two from the catalog of ships, which caused some of my colleagues to joke that that was the only part of the poem that they could part with by having it buried around.
also the reader of that particular papyrus, that was the part that he could part with as well, to give to the mummy to embalm him. That's
Yeah.
really funny. That's
Uh,
really, it's amazing how really every day there's new revelations about the ancient world.
Yes. And there's a project going on, you're probably familiar with it, to read the papyri from Herculaneum that were
Mm.
uh, charred in the volcanic eruption and preserved as like lumps of ash almost, but still intact. And they can't be unrolled because they'd all fall apart. But
Yeah.
a process has now emerged that can read by shooting a beam through them and reading what's inside layer by layer. It's very expensive so far, but as it gets cheaper, it will be possible to read. And there are hundreds and hundreds of these scrolls, and we have no idea what's on them. So
That's absolutely amazing.
some lost plays may be recovered that way.
That's so exciting. And if they are, will you write a book about it? Will you translate them for us so that we can enjoy them?
If I'm still around by that time, I would hope to, yes.
Well, with the moves that we make in technology, hopefully, because that's more interesting than a lot of the other stuff they're talking about doing right now. So let's hope that they get there.
Yeah.
I'm I'm so grateful you were able to join us, especially after our little hiccup a couple of weeks ago, to talk
Oh,
about this
it's a
lovely
pleasure.
book.
It's a pleasure.
And we'll keep our eye out for the fishing poem
How to fish.
because how to fish, because now I am curious about, I'm not a fisher, I'm not really interested in that, but I'm interested in biology and I'm interested in learning more about the fish. I think that would be fun, especially from an ancient.
And you'll discover that they have remarkable qualities that you never imagined.
See, now I have to read it. Please keep us posted.
I
Let
certainly
us
will.
let us know when it comes out.
I certainly will.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Same here. Same here. It was fun. Many thanks to James Romm for his insights into the world of ancient Greece and for his wonderful, timely book, Since You're Mortal. We'll link his website, jamesromm.com, in our episode notes so listeners can find a complete list of Professor Romm's books and translations. We'll also link a glowing book review from the National Herald, which is a popular news source for the Greek diaspora. Thanks for listening. Greek Like Me is a Stealth Greek production. I'm your host, Pamela Diotis Wood. Our producer, photographer, and post-production editor is Douglas John. Visit our website at stealthcreek.com for resources, photos, links, and more. Please rate, like, and subscribe. It helps us to keep making content about Greeks and Greek culture. Greek Like Me is getting its act together on YouTube, Facebook, or on Instagram at Greek_like_me. See you next time. Yes.